Hi, I'm Andy and I'm a volunteer for the Brain Tumour charity. And today I'm going to talk about my experiences with fatigue. I was diagnosed with a meningioma, grade 2, right parietal, so top right, which was removed surgically 7 years ago with some recurrence dealt with through gamma knife radiotherapy 2 years ago. I first started noticing my fatigue after my brain surgery, really. I noticed after I'd recuperated and I'd got back to work, I started feeling a lot more drained and a lot more run down on the weekends, and I was struggling during the week as well. And I think in hindsight, I probably was feeling more fatigued during the last few months leading up to my diagnosis when I was still working, but I'd kind of put that down to a busy lifestyle, getting older. And it was only really once I'd recuperated and I realised that actually, no, this was different. This was fatigue. This is something I'd not experienced before. So it's something that was new to me, and it took me a while to realise what it actually was. What does it feel like, fatigue? To me, it's like having a really bad hangover, but you haven't had the fun of getting the hangover. So you feel really drained physically and mentally, really tired, but you can't sleep, often with a pretty bad headache, and just feeling rough, just listless, no energy, and just feeling drained. And it's not very pleasant at all. You just feel quite ill, to be honest. And fatigue, in my case, tends to come on during the day as well. So quite often you'll wake up in the morning, you'll be fine. During the afternoon, you think, and then during the evening, it can come on. And unfortunately, I've had many evenings where I've just felt really bad, really ill. Initially, I thought I was actually ill. And then I realised, no, there was a pattern there. And I'd feel really ill at night and then feel fine in the morning. And it was the fatigue that was causing that illness. So it's more than just feeling tired. So when people say they're fatigued, it isn't just tiredness. It's a lot worse than tiredness. So it's pretty unpleasant, unfortunately. How do I explain fatigue to others? Well, I liken your brain and the mental energy you have each day as to your mobile phone battery. So if you think of your brain as being a mobile phone battery, so most healthy people, you'll go to sleep, you'll have a good sleep, you'll wake up and your brain will be charged to about 80-90%, maybe 100 if you're lucky. And then during the day, as you use your brain more, it uses up the battery, and then it gets down to about 30-40%. But that's fine for most people. You feel a bit tired, but that's okay. You go to sleep, recharge it, and on you go. For people like myself that have had a brain injury and a brain tumour, I don't sleep very well. So I wake up, my brain's probably charged around about 60-65%. And then because it's had a trauma, the brain works hard just to exist because it knows it's had a trauma. So it's trying to fix it all the time. So you use up that energy more. And then as you do things during the day, be it physical exercise or mental exercise, or using your mental energy for doing something that's particularly taxing, be that a Zoom call, chairing a meeting, reviewing documents, talking to a lot of people, being in a noisy situation, all those take more energy. And unfortunately, then if your brain gets below 20%, just like your phone battery, it turns red and it says, I don't like this. And that's when the fatigue really kicks in. So for me, it's the only way to fix the fatigue is to recharge the brain effectively like a mobile phone battery. And the only way to do that is to sleep. And it's not a nap. It's not taking it easy. It's not having a quiet few minutes. It's sleep is the only way to really get rid of the fatigue, to allow you to start the next day in a non-fatigued state. How did I find out more about fatigue? Well, there wasn't much support from like the medical profession. So I use the Brain Tumour charity a lot, their website and their online support groups, their Facebook groups, talking to others, and since actually physically talking to others that have had brain injuries and hearing their stories and hearing how they cope and hearing what causes it. So that's how I found out. It's a bit of self-help. I didn't really go to the medical profession because by the time I realised I was getting fatigued and I knew what it was, I felt I had more information probably than GPs did about what it is, what causes it, and how you deal with it as well. So how do I deal with my fatigue? Well, it's about trying to reduce the amount I'm using my brain, being blunt. So I've got a spreadsheet, so I keep a record of my activities during the day. And if I'm doing something particularly intense, like a Zoom call or recording a video, that'll be a red. And I've noticed over the years that when I have a lot of days bunched together with a high mental activity, that's when the fatigue sets in. It's cumulative, so that's when the fatigue will set in. Or on a particular day, if I'm doing like 2 or 3 meetings in the same day, I'll feel fatigued in the evening. So I realise that. So I now change my lifestyle to space things out. So if I'm having a particularly busy day, I'll plan a recovery day the next day where I'm doing nothing. And that means literally reading the newspapers, maybe doing some puzzles, watching the telly, a light walk maybe, but nothing else. Nothing taxing the brain, to just give it a chance to recover. And if I do that, and if I spread my activities out, that can reduce the onset of the fatigue coming on. Other things as well is overstimulation is often a factor with people that have had brain injury. So if I go out for a walk, I'll always have a cap and sunglasses on to reduce the amount of sunlight coming in, because I've noticed in the past, if I would go out for a walk in bright sunlight in the evening, I'd often feel fatigued. If we're going out into a noisy environment, so I'm going out for a meal with a family, I'll try and sit at the end of the table, preferably with my back to the wall. And then all the noise is coming in one direction and it's much easier to process. If I'm sat in the middle and I'm looking left and right and there's lots going on, that can overload the brain and over time will take too much mental energy and then lead to fatigue. So it's tricks like that to try and reduce whatever causes your brain to be overstimulated and to be using too much mental energy, to effectively try and reduce the occurrence of that. And just recognise that there will be days when you do get fatigue. So I invest in a good pair of noise-cancelling headphones, for example, so that if you can feel fatigue coming on during the evening, you can take yourself off, listen in a quiet area. Some people go into a dark room as well. And the noise-cancelling headphones means you can concentrate on the music you like, so it takes your mind off the fatigue and also reduces any noise coming in, so you're not stimulating your brain. So things like that for me have worked in reducing the amount of fatigue I get, and when I do get fatigue, how I try and cope with it. Headache pills take the edge off it, but they don't really tackle the underlying fatigue. Sleep, unfortunately, is the only thing. So once again, if you are feeling fatigue, it's very common, unfortunately, with people that have had brain injuries and brain surgery. So you're not alone, and there's plenty of information out there, especially on the website for the Brain Tumour charity, that can hopefully help you cope.